If you want talk, games, and fun all rolled into one, well, you've come to the right place. This is The Game Show, where host Bradley Clarke and his special guests talk about the world of television game and competition shows. But Bradley's guests aren't here to just talk. They came to play a game as well. What will today's topic be? What game does Bradley have planned? There's only one way to find out.
It's time to start the show.
You heard the man. Welcome to The Game Show. And here's your host, the Bradster himself, Bradley Clarke.
Did somebody say they wanted a brand new episode of The Game Show? Well, I don't want to disappoint your wishes. Thank you so much, Austin Angelo, and welcome everybody to another exciting episode of The Game Show, the talk show, all about the world of television game and competition shows. I'm Bradley Clarke, the Bradster, and today's episode is a very special one that is all about celebration, not just because it's my 65th episode of The Game Show, but because my favorite reality competition show of all time has recently reached an incredible milestone. On September 5th, 2001, 11 teams of 2, bound by friendship, love, or family, gathered at the starting line at the Bethesda Fountain located in New York City's Central Park for the first ever race around the world for $1 million. At the time, no one knew just how successful this show would become. But I'm here to tell you 20 years later that a show full of many detours, roadblocks, and airport difficulties has become one of the most popular and influential programs in not just reality TV history, but in television history as a whole. I'm, of course, talking about The Amazing Race. Being that the 20th anniversary celebration of The Amazing Race is upon us, I wanted to use 2 milestone episodes of The Game Show to celebrate this amazing television accomplishment. So that's exactly what I'm doing. Both this episode and my next milestone episode of The Game Show, episode number 70, will be devoted to honoring the 20-year history of The Amazing Race. For both episodes, I'll be welcoming back former guests and friends of The Game Show who know a thing or two about The Amazing Race because they are some of the most popular racers the show has ever featured. So I think it's about time I introduce my special guest for episode number 65. This guy is certainly a winner in my books, and he's a winner in the books of CBS as well because back in 2005, he ended up winning season 7 of The Amazing Race. However, that's what we talked about last time he joined me on the airwaves. This time, we're talking about his second appearance on The Amazing Race 2 years later in 2007. Season 11, The Amazing Race All-Stars. He is a 2-time competitor on The Amazing Race, and now he's a 2-time guest on The Game Show. Joining me on the line is one half of teammates Uchenna and Joyce from Season 7 and Season 11 of The Amazing Race. Mr. I was the first racer to finish eating 4 pounds of meat in Argentina, Uchenna Agu! Uchenna, welcome back to The Game Show!
Hey, brother, how are you? It's so good to hear your voice and get back together with you.
I am so happy that you decided to come back for another round of Bradley Clarke Questions and Curiosities, and that you want to take another trip down memory lane with me. But more importantly, I'm happy that you are joining me for my first Amazing Race 20th Anniversary Celebration episode, because Uchenna, you are one of the most iconic figures and iconic winners in the show's history. So it's an honor to have you as my guest for this special occasion.
Yes, that's fantastic. A lot of shows don't get to that type of longevity, and it's nice to know that nice family show that's done well, and hopefully it'll continue on because everybody should have the opportunity to do that.
Well, not only did the show itself recently celebrate its 20th anniversary, but your original race, Season 7, was filmed in late 2004 and aired during the spring of 2005 TV season. So believe it or not, we are actually approaching the 20th anniversary of your winning moment, both the filming of it and the airing of it.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think COVID gave new life to some of the older seasons. People are able to binge watch season after season. It's funny because my social media has grown a bit and I get messages from people who saw season 7 for the first time in the last 2 years. So it's kind of cool.
Well, Uchenna, you're going to give all the fans who tuned in the thrill of hearing some behind-the-scenes information about the second time you and Joyce raced around the world for $1 million. And then later on, I have created another Amazing Race-themed trivia game for you to play during the game of the day. And this time, Uchenna, it revolves around the teams that you competed against on the Amazing Race All-Stars.
Oh my goodness, that's going to be a tough one for me, but I'm game.
So Uchenna, for the second time, are you ready to talk about the Amazing Race with me?
Yes, I am, and I'm excited about it.
Well, I'm going to start our conversation the same way I did last time. I'm channeling my inner Phil Kogan as I say, the world is waiting for you. Good luck. Travel safe. Go! And we're off. So Uchenna, after winning season 7 of The Amazing Race, did you think maybe an All-Stars season of the show was approaching? And were you and Joyce hoping to get the call to compete?
After recuperating from the first season, the season after ours was the family season. So we were really worried what was going to happen with the show altogether because the family series did not really fare well in the ratings. So when they started talking about an All-Stars, I was excited and hoping that we would be chosen for sure.
And when you did get the call for All-Stars, did you make a list of teams that you figured were also going to get the invitation so you could start to mentally prepare yourself to compete against them?
I really expected to be all winners or super popular teams. So you had to imagine my surprise when we were the only winners that were brought back. And the rest were other teams and then some newly formed teams from popular people. So that was kind of cool. We were surprised, but we also knew that, wow, as soon as we saw that we were the only winners that they brought back, we knew that there'd be a target on our backs from day one. But Amazing Race, Survivor, a lot of the shows, they're more interested in the ratings. So they went with people that probably draw the most ratings because not every team that won was necessarily the most popular team in the race.
Well, that's certainly a compliment since not only were you and Joyce a great winning team, but you were also a popular team amongst the fan base.
Well, yeah, that was a great compliment to be chosen. But anytime you would be chosen to be on the Amazing Race, whether you were a popular team or whether you were on for the first time, it is truly an honor.
At the starting line, Phil mentioned that some of the teams had done battle before. And of course, one of the teams that you would be competing against on All-Stars was none other than the beloved Rob and Amber, who you raced against on season 7. So Uchenna, were you expecting to see Rob and Amber on the cast? And what were your thoughts of having to race against them for a second time?
I wasn't surprised to see them once I realized that there wasn't going to be all winners. And I liked it because I knew that that was going to be a challenge that I was up for. I really viewed Rob and Amber as the team to beat just because of their popularity and their savvy and their huge experience and following from Survivor. I like competition. I consider them some of the best. So having them there definitely upped the ante for me. It charged me. Rob and Amber would be right there in the top to go down in history as ones that I enjoyed challenging the most.
Quito, Ecuador was the first destination, and you ended the first leg in 7th place, which was better than your first leg finish on season 7, which was 8th place. Brad fact, since this was the best of the best, how content were you with a 7th place finish for the first leg?
You know, truthfully, the intensity was great because the first leg is the toughest leg. I don't care how you cut it. You don't want to be eliminated that first leg. That is the scariest leg because you just don't know what's going to happen. And the competition is at its highest on the first leg. So, yeah, bottom line is I really liked more of the cast in 11 than in 7. I mean, I did not like anybody else, but the challenge was different and exciting. But for Eric and Danielle to be in there, it was kind of cool because they were from 2 different teams.
Rob and Amber ended up winning legs 1, 2, and 3. Brad fact. So did Rob and Amber winning the first 3 legs in a row bother you and Joyce as well as the other teams? Or did Rob and Amber's three-peat not faze you because you thought they were bound to falter eventually?
Yeah, well, I knew they would falter eventually. I just was focused on staying in. The other teams were getting pissed and annoyed, especially Danny and Oswald were starting to trip on that a little bit. And it's easy to go down that slippery slope of, oh, those guys are getting special treatment. Oh, those guys are doing this, that, and the other. It's like, you know what? I've seen it switch up so quickly. It makes sense to just keep your head down and keep it rolling.
Right, and you know firsthand that Rob and Amber can sometimes take the wrong turn, just like the case was in Florida during the final leg of season 7.
Oh, absolutely. Anybody can make a mistake in this thing. That's why if you're focused on somebody else, you're not focused on your race. So you go for so many hours of not seeing other teams. If you're not focused on what you're doing, you could continue down a path that's going to lead you to elimination for sure.
So at the end of leg 4 in Argentina, a shocker occurred when Rob and Amber were eliminated after Rob failed to spell the word Philippines correctly during the detour. Brad fact! You and Joyce checked in at the pit stop in 6th place, and the 7th place team was either going to be Charla and Myrna or Rob and Amber. And you were still at the mat when Charla and Myrna checked in as the 7th place team. Now, usually, previously checked in teams aren't still at the mat when other teams arrive if there is a time separation. So, Uchenna, did you ask to wait and see who the 7th place team was going to be, or did Charla and Myrna arrive right after you and the episode was edited to make it look like there was a larger separation between you and them?
They did arrive pretty close to when we did, but it was more of the editing that made it look like they were a little bit different. But they were very, very close to us. Yeah.
And when you were on the mat with Charla and Myrna, did anyone ever mention your hopes that this was going to be a non-elimination leg? Because you knew at that point that Rob and Amber were going to be last.
Well, yeah, in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, hopefully it's a full elimination. Every time a team lingers on that doesn't get eliminated, they have a greater fervor for doing better the next leg. And you don't want that. You want to go ahead and let them blow out and then continue to compete. So the fingers were crossed that whoever was coming in last was going to be eliminated. And at that point, I didn't really know who was left.
Oh, so you didn't know that Rob and Amber were going to be last. They didn't tell you.
No, they don't tell you who's behind you, especially if you are still on the mat. When you come off the mat, you go into a holding area, and then that's where you kind of see, especially if it's like around dinner time, you'll see the other teams that are in. You go, oh, wow, okay. And it's like, so who's left? So you look around the room, okay, so this person's not here yet, so that's who's going out or not. So you don't know. I mean, they don't tell you anything. I mean, if you notice that we're always surprised when we get to the mat, if nobody's there, what place you're in. If you're behind somebody and you hear what place they got, you're not as surprised when you get to the mat with Phil. Like Charlotte and Myrna, they weren't like surprised. They were just glad they weren't last.
Right. And I know production doesn't tell you which teams have already checked in, but I just figured maybe Charlotte and Myrna said to you on the mat, we just beat out Rob and Amber.
No, we didn't discuss it. They may have said something to Phil, but I don't remember that interaction very well.
For leg 5, you traveled to Maputo, Mozambique, and after a difficult detour involving you and Joyce trying to find the correct address to deliver your bags of coal, you were the last team to arrive at the pit stop. Luckily, though, leg 5 was a non-elimination leg. However, unlike in season 7, the non-elimination penalty involved you and Joyce being marked for elimination, meaning you needed to arrive at the next pit stop in first place unless you would incur an automatic 30-minute penalty. Brad fact! Now, after going through what you did on the final leg of season 7, did you see this as an easier penalty because you still had your bags and you would still have money? All you had to do was beat one team by 30 minutes.
Yeah, it didn't seem too bad, but at the end of the day, yes, it's better not to lose all your stuff because you have all your tools for competing. But having that mark on your back is really stressful because now it almost forces you to do what I told you that you shouldn't do, is look and see where other teams are and try to stay focused on that. So, yeah, that was a scary leg for us. And staying positive is the hardest thing to do when you're in those type of scenarios.
The marked for elimination penalty debuted in season 10, which was the season before All-Stars. Brad fact! Uchenna, do you think it was the right time for the show to switch up the non-elimination leg penalty for something new? Especially since we had seen the taking away the money penalty since season 5 and the stripping of the bags penalty since season 7?
Yeah, after watching a lot of seasons of it, you know they're going to change some of the rules to keep it interesting. And then teams have gotten so savvy and watch season after season after season to know what to do in certain situations that them putting twists in, I totally expected. I would have been disappointed if they hadn't put different twists in. You know, it's great when they keep it spicy and change the rules and change things around so that people can't get comfortable. And that's the whole thing. Amazing Race is about fish out of water.
At the leg 6 pit stop in Tanzania, you ended up surviving the marked for elimination penalty after checking in at the mat in 3rd place and waiting out the 30 minutes. So Uchenna, how satisfying is it knowing that you overcame 2 different non-elimination penalties on your 2 races?
Again, there's highlights that you remember, and that was a long 30 minutes sitting there watching the clock and looking over the horizon to see who was going to show up or if anyone was to show up ahead of time. And yeah, it was tough, but very satisfying as well.
Prior to the start of leg 6, knowing you were marked for elimination, did you and Joyce devise any sort of game plan for the leg?
We went into the leg thinking efficiency, efficiency, efficiency. Whatever we could do to get through things and move on, no dilly-dallying, no sightseeing. Get it done. That was the game plan for that leg.
And then leg 7, you left the pit stop at 7:55 a.m., but Team Guido didn't complete leg 6 and check in at the pit stop until 7:01 a.m., which was only 54 minutes prior, followed by Terry and Ian, who were eliminated shortly after. Before you began leg 7, did you see Team Guido or Terry and Ian check in at the pit stop or Phil finishing up his hosting duties, since your departure time and their arrival times were so close together?
You know, it's funny. They were milling around, but I just did not see them. They were very skilled in having us leave and go without crossing paths.
The destination for leg 7 was Warsaw, Poland, and there was a roadblock that went unaired that leg at Lazienki Park, which was adjacent to the pit stop, Lazienki Palace. Brad fact! There is little information known about this roadblock aside from the fact that the chosen team member had to row a boat in the park's reflecting pool. So I'm curious as to whether you or Joyce performed this task, and what exactly were the details of this roadblock challenge?
That was one that I had to do. We had to go through the palace, and then we had to find certain things there. And you're right, there was a big reflecting pool there. I just don't remember what we had to do. It was a beautiful palace. I was intrigued by Poland. I thought Poland and Warsaw and the different cities that we ran through were amazing. Here's a fun fact. Poland was ravaged. It was leveled during World War II. But they restored many of the buildings, all the historical buildings that were there in the 40s. They look new, but the insides are mostly empty. All the art of that time was destroyed or stolen by the Germans. So it's this weird thing of like forward and backward in time. The other thing is the people of Poland, as nice as they are, they did not like video cameras in their face. It stuck out more than any other country. The people were very camera shy, almost to the point of being a little grumpy if you asked them a question and the camera guy came too close. Or they'd ask, don't put my face on film. Their voice would be on there, but they'd be blurred out. They wouldn't sign releases and stuff.
The first clue of leg 8 said that you'd be visiting the Auschwitz concentration camp. As a viewer, we saw how meaningful of a visit it was for all of the teams. But for you to actually be at Auschwitz in the middle of this competition, I'm sure it must have been a moment where you forgot about the race and you took a few minutes to just reflect on the location that you were at, correct?
Yeah, I mean, that was the first time in my now 2 iterations of doing race where it felt like time stopped. Competition truly stopped. And there was a reverence for where we were. We were stepping into history at that moment, a not so proud moment in human history. And we did a candle ceremony. I think they aired that. It was eerily cool that the race would stop and we all had reverence for what occurred there. And to be able to see it, the place was very, very eerie. You could feel the heaviness of what occurred there. It was quite an experience. One that I will never forget, for sure.
Later on in leg 8, an intersection appeared, meaning you had to join forces with another team and complete all tasks together until further notice. Brad fact! For the intersection, you and Joyce and Oswald and Danny teamed up and elected to go for the fast forward featured on the leg. Now usually a team can only use one fast forward on the race, but Oswald and Danny claimed the second fast forward on the race during leg 10 in Hong Kong, even after winning the fast forward with you and Joyce on leg 8. So were you told by production that you could attempt a single team fast forward even after winning an intersection fast forward? And that's why you went for the fast forward in Poland, because it wouldn't be a wasted fast forward opportunity?
Yes, we kind of figured that out. That was some questions that we needed to ask going into it. And it was fun to team up with the team. That was the first time we really teamed up officially as part of the race, teaming up with the team. So I enjoyed that a lot. It was good, healthy bonding, and it created alliances that ended up serving at other parts of the race because of that moment together. It creates a kinship. If we ever needed anything from them or whatever, they would have been right there with us. Those guys, they were fun to hang out with.
The goal of the fast forward was to climb 2 different towers and count the total number of steps. You and Oswald had the same number of 348 steps counted, so that's the number you guessed, which ended up being correct. However, if you guessed wrong, would you have to go back and count all of the steps again? Or could you guess at the answer multiple times?
No, you had to go back and count again. You couldn't just sit there and keep guessing numbers until you got it. You would have had to go back and count again because you got it wrong. So that was the plan. All right, you count silently. I'm going to count silently. And when we get to the top, if the number's the same, let's go with it. It was fun working with those guys.
Now let's talk about leg 9, which unfortunately was your downfall. And I want to begin this leg by talking about your pit stop departure. Even though you and Joyce and Oswald and Danny arrived at the exact same time, and you both had displayed departure times of 9:48 p.m., it's clear that you and Joyce and Oswald and Danny left at different times because you are standing at the exact same spot when reading the clue and not side by side. So did you and Joyce actually depart this pit stop before Oswald and Danny?
Yeah, I think they had us leave about a minute apart, 2 minutes apart, whatever. We all kind of caught the same cabs, arrived at the airport at the same time. They needed to, for production purposes, for us all to leave because that was going from there to Malaysia. And that was where we went down in flames.
Right, so you decided to take a risk by booking a connecting flight to Malaysia through Frankfurt, Germany that only had a 1-hour connecting time. And unfortunately, you and Joyce didn't end up making the flight. You could not recover, and it resulted in you being the 5th team in Amazing Race history after Season 1's Pat and Brenda, Season 3's John Vito and Jill, Season 4's Steve and Josh, and Season 7's Ray and Dina, to win a fast forward and check in at the pit stop in first place, but then be eliminated by arriving last to the pit stop in the following leg. Brad fact!
Yeah, that choice to go through Germany was a bad choice instead of going through Paris with the rest of the teams. Trying to make that 30-minute jump on everyone, because we did feel like there was a target on our backs, so we thought we'd take a chance. And in Germany, it was just tickets weren't printing properly, and they weren't going to let us shoot through the airport fast. Anybody you would rush in Germany went slower. Frankfurt is probably one of the most surveilled airports in the world, and they don't move anything fast. So if you don't have enough time, don't go through Frankfurt.
Once you landed in Malaysia and traveled to the Batu Caves, the clue said to travel to the next pit stop. And I'm presuming when you read that the first clue in Malaysia was to go to the pit stop, that was when you realized this is not good.
Exactly. We knew when we missed the flight that it's pretty much that was it, because it took us from arriving in Malaysia 30 minutes ahead of everybody to arriving 10 hours later. When we arrived in Malaysia, it was 10 hours. They had been done for so long. We were going to be eliminated. It could have ended up being a non-elimination leg, but if it was, production would have had to wait 10 hours to move on. So we knew that it's like nobody's going to wait 10 hours. We're out. So even if it had planned to be a non-elimination leg, they would have had to eliminate us. I think that it was time for another non-elimination leg anyway. So that was what I was betting on. But I kind of knew 10 hours with taking production way out of whack. And I knew that the time that we were behind and the fact that we were going to probably leave that country, it was not going to work well. 10 hours is just too long. And I think it was planned to be a non-elimination leg. Of course, we don't know that, but my heart tells me that it was probably going to be a non-elimination leg, and we fell too far behind for that to even make sense for the production.
Well, also, if it was a non-elimination leg, you would have been marked for elimination. So not only would you have to make up 10 hours, you would also have to beat at least one team by 30 minutes because chances are you and Joyce were not going to arrive at the pit stop in first place.
Yeah, if everybody stayed together, there's no way we would have been able to stay in the mix. with that type of deficit. Now, unless somebody got super lost or something happened, that's why I say the teams now, they know to stay together as much as possible and figure out what the other teams are doing and stick around. If you can stay close, you may get a little break because all you really need is 10 seconds. But if you get blown out for an hour or more, it becomes virtually impossible.
When you arrived at the pit stop and Phil said that you and Joyce had been eliminated, what was that feeling? Because the two of you had not felt the pain of elimination during your previous race.
The thing is, we did not get the full feeling of elimination. Yes, we knew we were no longer in the competition, but the pace of the race stayed going with us because we were doing the decoy thing. So we were distracted from the horrible loss by getting to still participate. So it's not like they whisked us away, threw us on a plane, and we went to wherever the elimination station was and hung out with the rest of the losers and helped lick each other's wounds about it. We stayed in it, so we didn't see the other guys that were eliminated till the finish line still.
Right, and I want to talk about the decoy race that you and Joyce ran after you were eliminated because you mentioned it on your previous episode of the game show. For the listeners who don't know the reasoning behind eliminated teams running future legs as a decoy team, why don't you explain it, Uchenna?
It was so close to the end of the race, and there were a lot of spoilers out there by that time. So if you saw Amazing Race teams running through an airport, you were posting, oh, it looks like so-and-so is still in, or whatever. So we actually became decoys and did the end of the shows, except going to the mat the same way everybody else did. We did another 2 legs with the rest of the teams. We weren't sent to the resort.
So you and Joyce actually ran leg 10 in Hong Kong, China, and leg 11 in Macau, China?
Yeah, we did both of those legs. And every now and then we'd have a different task that the other teams weren't going to, and we did something fun. And they were very strategic in what we did. And some of the things we did like the rest of the teams. And it was nice because we just get driven to the task. We didn't have to try to find it on our own. And then when the teams finished running through it, then we'd run out of our van and we'd run and do the task as if we were still in the race.
Did you have to jump off the Macau Tower, which was the highest jump in Amazing Race history?
Yes, that was freaking cool. It felt like we were up in the clouds. It was cool. You fell for like the first 2 or 3 seconds in the clouds. It was so high. That was cool. So we got to have the fun of Amazing Race all the way to the end, even in the last leg, running through San Francisco.
Oh, so you didn't just run the following 2 legs after your elimination. You ran all 4 of the remaining legs of the race.
Yeah, we did all the remaining legs as decoys, though. So the teams would go through that were actually racing, and then we'd show up and do some of those tasks or just be seen trying to do those tasks by the public.
Did you attempt to try to do them as fast as possible just to simulate yourself still in the race?
Yeah, that was what we were charged to do. That's what they wanted us to do, is act like you're still in the race. Keep going. Throw the spoilers off. And it was an honor to do it.
Oswald and Danny were eliminated in 4th place during the penultimate leg. Did they run the final leg as a decoy alongside you?
Yeah, they did the decoy thing with us. It made it even more fun. That was another team to do it with us. But we did very similar tasks. Sometimes it wasn't the exact thing. It was little different things, or be seen running through the same courtyard. We may not even have done the task sometimes, just run through where other teams were running and people knew, oh, Amazing Race is here. And it worked too, because the spoiler alerts were showing that we were still in the race and they couldn't tell who was in, who wasn't in. So that was a little trick that they did, which was good because the spoilers were really trying to spoil.
So you would do them after everyone else had completed the test, right? So you would be behind them at all times.
Right. We would be behind the teams doing what they were doing. And we did the tasks, but we knew that there was no reward for doing them super fast. Plus, no one was actually shooting us, doing them, I don't think. I can't remember whether anybody was shooting us or not.
Oh, that's interesting. I would have figured that maybe there would be a decoy camera crew as well.
If I remember correctly, there wasn't anyone shooting everything that we were doing like we were still in it, but there were still cameras around. And a lot of times you see the teams running because of people hustling through, but you don't always see the cameras.
Well, even though the show wasn't filming you completing the remainder of the race, at least you can tell people that you actually completed the entire race course of the Amazing Race All-Stars.
Yeah. Again, we got in the Amazing Race to compete. We got in the Amazing Race not for bragging rights, but to be able to see the world and also compete at the same time. I don't really talk about The Amazing Race unless somebody asks me about it. We traveled the world twice, and it just so happens that the camera crew was with us. Like pro basketball players go out because they love to play basketball and get paid for it, but it just so happens that it's aired on TV all the time and people get to see it. We were focused on the competition, and it's really cool. So when people ask me questions about it, it's like you're telling them a story, but it's not necessarily who you are. It's just a blessing that happened to be videotaped. And I tell people I would do the race every 3 years if I could. It takes about that long to recuperate.
So Eric and Danielle ended up winning the Amazing Race All-Stars, and I'm curious about your opinion on them being selected as a team for All-Stars, since they were a newly formed team made up of 2 racers from different Season 9 teams, and they technically were not an All-Star team based on their previous race.
Right. They were a novelty because they started dating after their first iteration. So they were flirting with each other and all that kind of stuff in the other races that they were in. So once it got out that they were a couple, that was an experiment too that worked out really well. And the thing is, I remember talking to the producers about that, and they don't put anybody in the race that doesn't have the true chance of winning. They want competitors in there. So everybody in their minds going in has as good a chance to win as anybody else.
Well, that must have been a compliment for you and Joyce, because since you were the only winners selected to run on the Amazing Race All-Stars, that means the producers thought you had a great chance, if not the best chance out of all of the winning teams up to that point, to win the race for a second time.
Right. And I'm telling you, I wanted to, and I just feel like I let our team down right when we made that choice to go through Germany. I honestly think that we could have won it again. I'm sure it was a big sigh of relief for the rest of the teams that we were out. And I felt like throughout every race that I was in, the challenges were good, but I never felt super challenged. I think the eating challenge was a super challenge for me. I think the boat challenge was a super challenge for me in that first one. The biggest challenges for me in the second one were the other teams, not the actual challenges.
Well, I think sometimes that's what the producers are going for, more interaction and conflict between the teams as a driving force, rather than the difficulty of the challenges being the center of attention.
Right. And that's probably why I haven't been chosen to come back, because I always was able to get around all that controversy. And getting involved in that other stuff, while it was good TV, it just was not going to help get you anywhere in the race.
So if you could form a hybrid team and choose another former racer to be your partner on a future season of The Amazing Race, who would you want to run the race with?
I would probably like to do it again with Ray. Remember Ray and Dina?
Of course, yes.
Yeah. So I would love to do another race with somebody like Ray. You know, I'd do one with Rob. I'd team up with Rob. I think we would kill it. Riken would be a good one. I don't know if you remember him. I imagine he's probably in great shape now still, but I'd do it with Riken. Are there any females that I would do it with? Oh, I would do a race with Yolanda Jones, if you remember her from Survivor, who was early eliminated.
Of course, I remember Yolanda from Season 10, Survivor Palau.
Yeah.
I think that would be a fun race combination to watch, you and Yolanda. Season 31 of The Amazing Race was a reality showdown season in which former Amazing Race teams competed against teams of former Survivor castaways and teams of former Big Brother house guests. But hybrid teams consisting of one former Amazing Racer and one former Survivor castaway, that I think would be very interesting to watch.
Yeah.
I've always been hoping they would do a season of The Amazing Race where all the teams consist of one former racer and one Amazing Race superfan.
Yeah, that would be cool. There's a lot of super fans out there that would be fantastic to compete with. I would be open to that because I think I could get anyone pretty much to the finish line.
Before I get to the game, Uchenna, I want to mention one more Brad fact that I think you will find pretty incredible. You and Joyce hold the record for being the only team in Amazing Race history to run 20 consecutive legs of the race without ever being previously eliminated or without finishing the final leg in second or third place, which means you and Joyce hold the record for running the most consecutive legs of the Amazing Race without being eliminated or without being a final leg non-winner. Brad fact.
You know what? I did not know that, to tell you the truth. 20 legs not being eliminated. That's an interesting statistic. See, there you go. You've given me new confidence that I might actually get chosen to run another race.
Well, if the show ends up doing a season comprised of teams that hold Amazing Race records, and the producers call me asking for Amazing Race team statistics, I'll be sure to bring up that you hold the record for running the most legs without ever being eliminated.
Well, thank you. I hope they call you.
I hope they call me too. I always love sharing my Amazing Race knowledge with others, especially if they work on the show. Well, Uchenna, we have reached my favorite portion of the game show, and it's always fun for me to prove how big of an Amazing Race superfan I truly am by creating a game for a former Amazing Racer to play. So I am very excited to share with you another one of my game creations. It's time for the game of the day.
Game of the day.
Now, as I mentioned at the start of the show, this game revolves around the teams you competed against during Season 11, the Amazing Race All-Stars. And although there were 10 other teams standing in your way from winning a $2 million prize a decade and a half ago, now these teams can help you win this game of the day right here on the game show. This game is called Before They Were All-Stars. Before They Were All-Stars. And here's how the game works. In front of me are 12 numbered cards, each of which contains a statement about one of the 11 teams that you competed against on Season 11, The Amazing Race All-Stars. You'll pick a number, I'll read the statement, and all you have to do is tell me which team that statement corresponds to. Now here's how you win, Uchenna. Since you and Joyce finished in 5th place on the Amazing Race All-Stars, if you can answer 5 out of the 12 statements correctly, you will win this game, and hopefully it will help heal some of the wounds from not winning the Amazing Race All-Stars. Now, Uchenna, keep in mind, the answer to a statement might be a team by the name of Uchenna and Joyce. Multiple statements might correspond with the same team, and there's always a possibility that a team is not an answer to any of the statements. With all that in mind, are you ready to play, Uchenna?
Let's do it.
Then let's play Before They Were All-Stars. Remember, Uchenna, 5 out of 12 correct statements are needed for you to win. And which numbered card would you like to start with?
Let's start with 12.
Number 12 is where we will start. And here comes your first statement. Good luck, Uchenna. On their original season, this all-star team had 2 consecutive second-place finishes, followed by 2 consecutive first-place finishes, followed by 2 consecutive second-place finishes, followed by 2 consecutive fourth-place finishes.
Oh, wow.
So in other words, they finished 2 legs in second place, followed by 2 legs in first place, followed by 2 legs in second place, followed by 2 legs in fourth place.
In their other race?
In their original season, yes.
That would be Danny and Oswald.
Are you locking that in?
I'll lock that one in, yes.
Unfortunately, we're off to a bad start. It's actually Dustin and Candace.
Dustin and Candace. They were great. I like those guys. Yes, Dustin and Candace.
Yeah, so legs 5 and 6, they finished in second place. Legs 7 and 8, they finished in first place. Both halves of leg 9, because that was a double-length leg, they finished in second place. And legs 10 and 11, they finished in fourth place. Brad fact! And all those placements occurred during Season 10, which was Dustin and Candace's original season. But don't worry, Uchenna, there is still plenty more games still to be played. Which number next?
Let's go with number 3.
Number 3 it is, and here comes the statement. This all-star team originally raced on the season that first introduced the yield.
That first introduced the yield. That would be Joe and Bill.
Are you going to lock in Joe and Bill?
I'm locking it in.
No, it's not Joe and Bill. It's actually Charlotte and Myrna.
Okay.
Charlotte and Myrna competed on Season 5 of The Amazing Race, and Season 5 of the show introduced the yield. Brad fact! Alright, Uchenna, you're off to a slow start, but you can only go up from here. Which number next?
Let's go for number 5.
Number 5 statement is coming up right now. This team finished the race in the same position during their original season as they did on The Amazing Race All-Stars.
It was either Terry and Ian or David and Mary. Let's go with David and Mary.
Are you locking in David and Mary?
I'm locking it in.
Actually, this was the time you should have said Oswald and Danny because they are the correct answer.
Man, okay.
Oswald and Danny placed 4th on both Season 2 and Season 11. Brad fact!
Gotcha.
But Uchenna, don't feel discouraged. You still have 9 statements remaining, and you only need 5 to win.
Okay, let's go. Question number 7.
Number 7 it is. Here's the statement. During their original race, this team faced a double-length leg as part of Leg 3, the earliest double-length leg in Amazing Race history.
Maybe that's a Charla and Myrna again. Let's go with Charla and Myrna.
Are you locking in Charla and Myrna?
Yes.
No, it was Eric and Danielle.
Really?
Yeah, so Season 9 had a double-length leg as part of Leg 3, which both Eric of Eric and Jeremy and Danielle of Danielle and Danny encountered. Brad fact! Alright, Uchenna, we still need to get you on the board. What number next?
11.
Number 11 it is, and here comes your statement. On their original season, this all-star team took some time to shop in Hong Kong.
You know what? I'm thinking John Vito and Jill.
John, Vito, and Jill, is that what you're going to lock in?
Yes.
You were 1 season off. It was Oswald and Danny in Season 2.
They went shopping.
Yeah, so while waiting for their flight to be booked on Leg 8 of Season 2, Oswald and Danny did some shopping in Hong Kong, including ordering mocha cappuccinos at Starbucks and buying cologne. Brad fact! Alright, Uchenna, I still have confidence. You're gonna get your first correct answer eventually. The numbered cards still remaining are 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, and 10. Which one would you like?
10, please.
Number 10, and here's the statement behind that card. While China is the most visited country in Amazing Race history, having been featured on 14 seasons so far, this all-star team was the first team to ever be eliminated in China.
In China they were eliminated?
Yes, the first ever team to ever be eliminated in China.
I'm going to go with Joe and Bill.
Are you going to lock in Joe and Bill?
Yeah.
No, it was the other Season 1 team on Amazing Race All-Stars, Kevin and Drew. So during Leg 11 of Season 1, Kevin and Drew famously raced Joe and Bill through Beijing, China, hoping to avoid the final elimination of the season. Joe and Bill survived, but Kevin and Drew were eliminated, making them the first ever team to be eliminated in China. Brad fact!
Okay.
So you have 6 cards left, Uchenna, numbers 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 9. And as a reminder, you need to get 5 out of these 6 statements correct in order to win. Which number next?
1.
Number 1 for hopefully your first correct answer. Here comes the statement. Out of all 11 teams on the Amazing Race All-Stars, this team was the only one to finish the race in 5th place on their original season.
Golly, I can't remember. I'm going to just guess John Vito and Jill.
Are you locking in John Vito and Jill?
Yes.
Well, believe it or not, it is John Vito and Jill!
Yes. I got 1. Yeah, there we go.
See, I told you card number 1 was going to get you your first correct answer. Yeah, John Vito and Jill placed 5th on Season 3. Brad fact! So you have 1 correct answer, Uchenna. 4 more to go to achieve a victory. What number next?
All right, so we're going to number 2.
Number 2. Maybe this is going to be a lucky strategy for you, going in numerical order.
Yeah.
And this is what card number 2 says. They were the only all-star team not present at the finish line of their original season.
Oh, wow. They were not present at the finish line on their original season.
Correct.
I'm going to go with Joe and Bill.
Are you going to lock in Joe and Bill?
I'm going to lock that in.
Well, you've said Joe and Bill twice before, and both times Team Guido was an incorrect answer. This time, Joe and Bill is the correct answer.
All right, we're getting better with time.
Yeah, so Joe and Bill were so far behind during the final leg that they ended the race in Alaska, the penultimate location. Brad fact! You now have 2 correct answers, and the next number you have available is number 4. So do you want to see what statement is behind number 4?
Yep.
All right, here comes the statement behind number 4. This all-star team was the first ever team in Amazing Race history to be marked for elimination.
Dustin and Candace.
Is that your answer, Dustin and Candace?
I'm going to go with them.
Well, Season 10 introduced the marked for elimination penalty, and Dustin and Candace did race on Season 10, but David and Mary also raced on Season 10, and they are the correct answer.
Okay, good enough.
And just so you know, David and Mary were marked for elimination by being last during a non-elimination leg that occurred on leg 5 of season 10. Brad fact! Alright, Uchenna, not to put any pressure on you, but there are 3 cards left, numbers 6, 8, and 9, and in order to win the game, you need to get all 3 of these statements correct. But I have full confidence that you could do just that. So which of the 3 numbers would you like to start with?
6. Let's go right in the line.
Number 6 it is, and here is the statement, Uchenna. On their original season, one team member of this all-star team ate both 2 pounds of caviar and an ostrich egg as part of 2 different roadblocks.
That would be Charlotte and Myrna.
Are you locking in Charla and Myrna?
I think I'm going to lock that in.
And I think, Uchenna, that you are correct.
Yes. Thought I had a glimpse of a memory of that.
Yeah, as part of the Season 5 race course, Charla ate 2 pounds of caviar during the Leg 4 roadblock in Russia and ate an ostrich egg during the Leg 7 roadblock in Tanzania. Brad fact! 3 correct statements down, 2 more to go for a win, and between numbers 8 and 9, which one would you like to play next, Uchenna?
All right, number 8.
And here is the statement behind number 8. This is the only all-star team to finish in 3rd place during 3 consecutive legs of their original season, with none of the 3rd place finishes occurring on the final leg.
Golly, I feel like it was us. I think it was. It was us. It would be me.
Are you locking in Uchenna and Joyce?
I'm going to lock that in.
Well, I was hoping that you would know when the statement pertained to you and Joyce. And in this case, you did, because Uchenna and Joyce is correct.
Yeah. And I remember a bunch of 3rd places.
Yeah, in Season 7, you finished legs 6, 7, and 8 in 3rd place. And in case you were wondering, Joe and Bill also had 3 consecutive 3rd place finishes during Season 1, but one of those 3rd place finishes was on the final leg, which is why you and Joyce were the correct answer. Brad fact!
That was the differentiator.
All right, Uchenna, it doesn't get much more exciting than this. You have 4 correct statements, which means you only need 1 more correct statement to win the game, and there is 1 statement left, which is behind card number 9. So, to win this game of Before They Were All-Stars, here's the statement. On their original season, this team won the fast forward during a leg in Morocco.
That would be Terry and Ian.
Are you locking in Terry and Ian?
I'm locking it in, baby. Locking it in.
Well, Uchenna, you started the game off slow, but here at the end, you came on really strong, answering 4 out of the last 5 statements correctly. Unfortunately, you needed 5 correct statements for the win, and with your answer of Terry and Ian, you actually did get your 5th correct answer. Uchenna, you won!
Oh my God, I feel like a winner. I love it.
Well, you should feel like a winner, Uchenna, because you have officially won this game of Before They Were All-Stars.
Yes. I'll send you my bank account for the check, for the win. I appreciate it. That's great.
And that means, Uchenna, you are a 2-time winner of the Game of the Day on the Game Show.
Awesome. That makes me feel super good, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to play the game with you.
It was my pleasure to give you that opportunity. And by the way, Terry and Ian won their fast forward during leg 6 of season 3 in Morocco. Brad fact! And that was the Game of the Day Before They Were All-Stars. Before They Were All-Stars. Well, Uchenna, getting the chance to talk with you once about The Amazing Race was a true pleasure, but getting the chance to talk with you about The Amazing Race for a second time, as you expressed after Phil said go on All-Stars, this is the chance of a lifetime twice. So thank you so much, Uchenna, for joining me again on the game show.
Absolutely, and I thank you so much, Bradley. It's been a pleasure playing the games with you and answering the questions and talking about race. Thank you so much, Bradley.
You are so very welcome. And you always have an open invitation to join me for a 3rd time on the game show. And you never know, maybe if The Amazing Race ever does a superfan teamed up with a previous racer season, we'll get the chance to run the race together and cross the finish line first.
Awesome. Let's do it, baby. Let's do it. I'm a life coach now, and I really enjoy helping people design the life that they truly love living. And I really think that Amazing Race should be on everyone's list to try.
Well, the Amazing Race is definitely on my list of things to try, so hopefully CBS will give me the call one day in the near future.
Awesome. I hope you get that call, brother.
Thank you so much. I hope so too. All right, Uchenna. All the best to you. Keep in touch, and I hope we get to speak again soon.
I look forward to it, my friend. Thank you.
It was my pleasure. Take care, Uchenna.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And before I sign off, it's time for another Bradley Parody. Bradley Parody. This is the segment of the game show in which I create a parody song about an aspect of this episode. And I am so excited to share with you my second ever Amazing Race themed Bradley Parody. On episode number 55, which featured Season 1 racer Kevin O'Connor from Team Kevin and Drew as my special guest, I debuted Amazing, which was to the tune of Crazy by Seal. Being that 2021 is the 20th anniversary of the Amazing Race period, as Kevin likes to call it, Amazing was my opportunity to honor the incredible milestone of the inaugural season on an episode of the game show that featured one of the first season's most memorable racers. With that being said, since I already created a parody song as an homage to the Amazing Race's 20th anniversary, I thought it would be fun if this Amazing Race themed Bradley parody is based on the Amazing Race All-Stars, the second season featuring this episode's special guest, Uchenna Agu, and a season that brought back some of the best racers from the show's first 10 seasons. So, to the tune of the hit song All-Star by Smash Mouth, here is Bradley parody number 16, conveniently titled The Amazing Race All-Stars. In the spring of '07, the Amazing Race 11 featured a cast of familiar faces. They were the best teams to run the Amazing Race since Season 1. Eric and Danielle scratched many fans' heads. But there were many teams that the fans were happy to see line up at the starting line in Miami, like Team Guido and Kevin and Drew, plus winners Uchenna and Joyce Agu. Last season's teams, the Beauty Queens and David and Mary, can be seen. Also Ian and Terry, and John, Vito, and Jill from Season 3. They're the Amazing Race All-Stars. They came back to dominate. They're the Amazing Race All-Stars. They want the $1 million payday. They'll travel by plane, train, car, and boat, and face many roadblocks and detours. Kicking off this All-Stars World Tour was the first for the race. They flew to Quito, Ecuador, then came Chile and Argentina, followed by Mozambique and Tanzania. Next came Poland and Kuala Lumpur, which is in Malaysia if you're looking at the globe. Then came Hong Kong and Macau. From Hawaii, San Francisco ends the route. They're the Amazing Race All-Stars. They came back to dominate. They're the Amazing Race All-Stars. They want the $1 million payday. They'll travel by plane, train, car, and boat, and face many roadblocks and detours. They're the Amazing Race All-Stars. They came back to dominate. They're the Amazing Race All-Stars. They want the $1 million payday. They'll travel by plane, train, car, and boat, and face many roadblocks, like when they had to find a letter written by former cast members who they raced against in their first season. Or during leg 11 in Macau, one team member had to walk around the outer rim of the Macau Tower, then descend 660 feet, the world's tallest skyjump they had to complete. So many crazy challenges the teams had to face, competing on the All-Stars Amazing Race. For snail clipping, sausage eating, and there was also whitewater rafting, plus X-raying a mannequin to find the clue that was hidden within. They're the Amazing Race All-Stars. They came back to dominate. They're the Amazing Race All-Stars. They want the $1 million payday. They'll travel by plane, train, car, and boat, and face many roadblocks and detours. The teams all raced on the show before, and now they are back to race once more. Creating that song parody definitely brought back many memories of watching the Amazing Race All-Stars for the first time when I was 9 years old. So Uchenna, I hope listening to this song parody brought back many great memories you had racing on the Amazing Race All-Stars. And that was this episode's Bradley Parody. Bradley Parody. Well, just like a season of The Amazing Race has to come to an end, episodes of the game show have to unfortunately come to an end as well. And this episode is just about to reach its finish line. My thanks once again to Uchenna Agu, one half of teammates Uchenna and Joyce, Season 7 winners of The Amazing Race, and 5th place finishers on Season 11, The Amazing Race All-Stars, for being episode number 65's special guest, and for celebrating the 20th anniversary of The Amazing Race with me here on The Game Show. Now, if you would like to check out my first episode of The Game Show featuring Uchenna Agu as my special guest, where he and I talked about his winning season, The Amazing Race Season 7, or if you would like to listen to this Amazing Race All-Stars chat once again, and you know you do, all you have to do is take a detour from whatever you're doing right now and log on to www.soundcloud.com/Bradley_Clarke. That's BRADLEY_CLARKE/sets/The Game Show. That's www.soundcloud.com/Bradley_Clarke. That's BRADLEY_CLARKE/sets/The Game Show. In addition, The Game Show is on YouTube. That's right, you can listen to every single episode, game segment, Bradley Parody, and more by going on to the YouTube channel of The Game Show starring Bradley Clarke. And if you're a loyal friend and true, please remember to like and subscribe. Plus, don't forget to like The Game Show starring Bradley Clarke on Facebook and follow The Game Show starring Bradley Clarke on Twitter using the handle @TheGameShowBC and #TheGameShow. And of course, be sure to tune in next time for another exciting episode of the talk show all about the world of television game and competition shows, The Game Show. I'm Bradley Clarke, the Bradster, and I've got to run so I can get to the yield before anyone else does. Nobody is going to slow down the Bradster from racing. Bye for now.
This edition of The Game Show was created and produced by Bradley Clarke. This is Austin Angelo speaking.
The Game Show is a Bradley Clarke production. Get your game on.